If you have more questions after the session is over, you can email MSW Student Affairs, faculty, your advisors. You want to make sure you have all the information you need to make this important decision about your specialization. And we are recording this presentation because I know we're going to get requests from students who weren't able to join us today. So welcome everyone. My name is Arlene Hunter. I'm Assistant Dean of Student Affairs here at the School of Social Work and work with MSW students. I know that you receive lots of emails from me and the Office of Student Affairs. Our goal is to try to make sure that you are the most informed student group at Rutgers. And the purpose of our session today is to help you, provide you with as much information about the specializations that all MSW students must make a decision. We have two specializations, MAP or clinical, and we have representatives from faculty today that will explain all about the decision and your choice. And I will leave that to the faculty panel, but I will tell you that your decision, and you really can't go wrong with either one you choose, but you do have to keep in mind that depending on your decision, there'll be specific courses that you will need to take to complete the degree in the specialization. And it also will have an impact on your second practicum, not your first practicum. And many of you are already in your first practicum, but your second practicum. Faculty will explain more. There are also some licensing implications down the road that you should keep in mind. If you choose MAP and you want to be down the road a licensed clinical social worker, then you'll talk with your advisor about what courses you are able to take so that you will get the 12 credits you need. Again, more for the faculty to explain. Not everyone invited to this presentation has to declare their specialization at the end of this semester. Many of you do, but I invited everyone because it's never too early to start thinking and learning about this choice. Those of you who need to make this decision by the end of the semester will get an email from Student Affairs, either just before Thanksgiving break or just after Thanksgiving break. And it's the quickest survey you've taken lately. Put your name in there, and so I've chosen MAP, or I've chosen clinical, and then we'll take it from there. But not everyone will get that email. Those of you who will remind you we need to have that decision by the end of December. And there will be upcoming 2 more deep dive about the MAP specialization presentations. Look for your email. Through your email, you'll get more information shortly. Tuesday, October 28th, 7 to 8 p.m. and Friday, October 31st, 5 to 6 p.m. There's going to be a faculty member representing MAP who will do a deeper dive into what the MAP specialization is. And I believe that Dr. Lena was going to put that information in the chat, but I'm also going to send that out through Student Affairs. It's a deeper dive for those of you thinking about MAP. I encourage you to participate in those as well. Okay, enough from me. I'm turning it over to our 2 faculty today to unmute and discuss the choice in specializations. Thank you, Dr. Suesta and Dr. Lena, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
And we also have Dr. Lessie here, right, representing clinical.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Edward Lessie. Yes, there he is.
Dr. Lessie, do you care who goes first?
Would you like to go first? Go ahead.
We'll go first. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm first. Does that sound right? Laura? My name is Lena Nepomniachtchi, and I am a professor here. My last name is very long, so please just call me Lena. Don't even worry about that crazy name. I just want to give you a tiny bit of background about me, and then I think because it tells a story about the whole kind of thinking about MAP versus clinical. So I was actually an MSW student also at Rutgers way back in the day. I got my MSW in 91. so long ago. And I started out in the clinical track because I think, as many of you probably also know, when you think about social work, that's what you think about, right? You think of, it was called direct practice actually at that time, but it was about working one-on-one with people because that's all I knew about social work. I didn't even know that there was anything else. And I started out and it was very interesting and cool. And I was working with a Russian resettlement program. But very quickly, I realized that this was not for me. And so then I switched into the macro place, into our macro program then. And that's where I got my MSW. And then my field, my practicum placement was in an alternative high school. And actually, that's where I ended up getting a job afterwards. And I was working one-on-one with students, of course, right? Because you're in a school, but I was also running the program. I was also fundraising, meaning writing grants to fund the program. I was also creating daily policies about how do we run an alternative high school program that we were starting from the ground. So it was this combination of certainly direct practice work, right? Working one-on-one with kids, but at the same time, much more kind of macro focus, thinking about the bigger picture. And I think what we hopefully you're learning in your practice with communities and organizations class, the macro picture, right? What are ways that social workers can be social workers outside of just individual work? And I assume many of you were probably at orientation and you heard Marla Blunt Carter, who's the other kind of leader of the MAP faculty. We together spoke about what MAP is like. And I think she gave this really great analogy, and I'm going to kind of play with it a little bit. But obviously, this is just a metaphor, right? But think about, I thought it kind of worked well, right? Think about you're standing by a river, and all of these people are in the river and they're drowning, right? And so if you think about at the clinical level, we want to pull those people out of the water, obviously, right? And we want to help them immediately, right? This is what they need. And we want to work with them, make sure they're healthy, make sure they're okay, etc. Thinking about that as the clinical piece, right? The one-on-one, making changes at the individual level. If you step away and think about the macro kind of focus, you might say, well, first of all, do we need someone pulling people out of the water? Of course we do, right? Incredibly so. I would never, am I saying no? Of course, hugely important. But then the macro space, you think about, well, okay, let's step back and say, why are the people in the water? What happened? Why did the bridge collapse? Why was there not more resources and more things in place to help those people who fell into the water? And then pushing it further, why did this bridge collapse? Why did that one over there not collapse? Why is this the second time that this bridge has collapsed? Who lives over here where this bridge is? And who lives over there? Right? What structural issues are happening that are causing these problems in the first place, right? For these people to fall into the water. That is the macro kind of way of thinking about things where, we want to make a difference at the bigger level. Is it important to pull people out of the water? Hell yes. Is it important to think about the bigger picture? Of course, right? You cannot do one without the other. And that's where social work is so amazing, right? Because we actually do both. But this is where we do have to sadly specialize in something because that's what we have to do. And you do need to select one of these things. And one of the other things about Rutgers is that we have a macro program. There are actually very few schools around the country that have a specialization in this kind of specialization. So it is kind of a very unique space. I think I'll stop there and let Laura go on, or Dr. Cuesta, and then we'll open it up and have lots more conversations about what exactly these kinds of things are. Thanks.
Thank you, Lena. Good afternoon, everyone. I am I'm Professor Cuesta. I have been at Rutgers for 10 years, and I teach in the management and policy specialization concentration. I guess what I would like to offer about for you to consider as you make these decisions is a little bit of a somewhat different experience I had as I in my career coming into social work. My training is both in economics and in social work. And there was a time in my life where I was working with policymakers, with people who were making decisions about programs, about funding, about laws around new programs. And it always struck me that in those conversations, there were essentially economists making decisions about everything. Over time, I realized that there was something about their way of seeing the world, the way of understanding social problems that wasn't really aligned with how also I was seeing on the ground families and individuals experiencing these programs and these policies. And that's what I ended up coming into social work and pursuing a PhD in social work. Where it really helped me to integrate something that I also thought was really important, values around social justice and economic justice that were missing from those policy discussions I had experienced before. I think our program, our MAP specialization, helped us to train social work leaders that could be part of those conversations, those policy conversations, and bringing our social work values to the table. I think this is unique, and I think this is very much needed. If you're following what is happening in policy in our country, I think you probably agree that if we had social values be part of those policy conversations and shape policies, the outcomes of those policies will be different. You're probably wondering about, okay, if I decide to go into MAP, what kinds of jobs are out there? What kinds of practicums, just to begin with, we could do? And I, with my colleagues at the MAP specialization, we made a long list of those potential practicums and roles. And I just want to read out loud a few of them for all of you. So you could work in community organizing. You could work with legislators. You could work as a program developer, program management, or in program evaluation. And we have a really strong practicum program, and some examples of those practicum placements, for example, are organizations like New Jersey Policy Perspectives. This is a policy advocacy organization, really great, and then doing great work in New Jersey and beyond. We have also the Latino Action Network. We have the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. We have also the Senior Citizens United Community Service. There is a wide range of placements, and depending on which population you want to work with, that we could also provide and support you in our program. I think I'm going to stop here. I realize it's 12:18, and you probably have questions that we can answer and help to address at the Q&A section. Thank you.
Dr. Alessi, were you going to add something to the clinical, or?
Yes,
Okay, I think that would be a good time now.
yes, thank you. So welcome, everyone. I'm here to represent the clinical social work specialization. Interestingly, as Dr. Nepomniachtchi was speaking, I was thinking about my trajectory when I started the master's program, and I actually started as a macro student, and then I had a professor who inspired me to decide to go the clinical route. And I wanted to tell you about the clinical social work specialization at Rutgers. What it does, it really helps you to build on the principles of the generalist practice approach, and including those supportive approaches that you use and that you develop knowledge and skill in. So the goal of the first year is to enhance individual, family, couple, and community well-being through engagement, assessment, and intervention that's evidence-informed. And we help to ensure in the second year or the specialization that you go into much more depth to learn interventions like psychodynamics, CBT, DBT, trauma-informed approaches, and crisis intervention. all that being able to help and resolve emotional, behavioral, and social related issues. One thing that we always highlight in the clinical specialization, and that my other colleagues also want me to make clear at this session, is that social justice is really at the core of all those interventions I just listed. So what does that mean exactly? It means that no matter what clinical intervention you're using, you still have to consider how environmental factors and structural dynamics like racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, poverty, and unjust social welfare policies contribute to the situation that the couple, the family, the individual, even the community is dealing with. Because without considering those things, um, you really can't do what we as social workers are driven to do, and that is promote social, racial, economic, and environmental justice. So we're going to help you in the clinical specialization to really thoughtfully engage and assess. And while you are going to be intervening at the micro level, of course, you're not going to be doing it in isolation. You're going to understand the importance of also supporting clients and their families at the macro policy and environmental levels. Being a clinical specialization student prepares you for the LSW, of course, but it also prepares you to take the LCSW exam after you have 2 years of supervised clinical social work experiences. And it's important to also note that you're going to be able to apply these theories and these interventions to respect and address issues of diversity and difference. We don't promote one-size-fits-all approaches to interventions. We like to look through an intersectional lens, which helps us understand those dynamics I mentioned earlier, like racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, poverty. So we look through that lens when trying to understand our clients. And also, the clinical specialization is not just for those who want to go into private practice or work one-on-one in mental health. In fact, we don't really encourage that in the beginning. We really want you to be able to work in multiple settings, like hospitals, schools, community organizations, health centers, college counseling centers. Clinical social workers work in a multitude of settings, and we'd like to prepare you for that. And you'll be prepared through courses like Clinical Social Work 1, Clinical Social Work 2, and then also there is a advanced distribution requirement that you have to take. And these courses help increase your knowledge in a specific area, for example, like schools or behavioral health with Latinos. Um, or it gets into a specific population like behavioral health with Latinos, social work with adolescents, with children, with families. You can focus on mental health, or even survivors of abuse and trauma. So it's important to keep that in mind. So you'll not only be getting a specialization, but you'll be able to focus on a specific area and population or both through those advanced practice distribution courses. And those advanced practice distribution courses can also be taken as electives as well. So you can take more than one to enhance your learning. So I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's important that the faculty are here today to explain this, and I really appreciate their time. Before we open it up for questions and answers, I know that there will be many questions. You've talked about the faculty, you've talked about the coursework, you've talked about why, what you might be doing. You both have mentioned perhaps career options. Could someone talk a little bit about if I chose clinical or if I chose MAP, what my second year practicum would look like? Maybe we could review that, and then students, get your questions ready.
Sure. Can I jump in? Is that okay? Because I also think we didn't talk more specifically about the courses. So just saying what your second year or your post selection year will look like. So you have in the MAP specialization, there's two required courses. One is management practice and theory, and the other is program and strategic planning. And I want to say those are not the most exciting titles of classes, and we are talking about changing those titles, but you know how faculty are, it might take us a little while to agree. But those courses cover all of the skills that you need in macro practice, so including management, administration, leadership, supervision, planning, policy analysis, policy implementation, advocacy. And also we touch on community organizing, community engagement, but those are also electives that are available through the MAP specialization and also actually available to everyone. So just like in the clinical space, there are electives that clinical people can take and MAP people can take and vice versa. So you can put together, you know, some of each if you decide to go one way or the other. In terms of what's the question? Oh, placements, right. What kinds of placements might you be looking at? So again, our MAP specialization folks are set everywhere. We have people in the government at the local, state, and federal levels. We have people in nonprofit agencies, of course, right? That's kind of the largest employer probably. We have people in policy think tanks and research organizations and healthcare settings, including hospitals and clinics, educational settings, including K through 12 schools and universities. And corporations and businesses doing all sorts of kind of human resource kind of stuff and some fundraising stuff as well. And let me also, I forgot to say one other thing. There is also distribution requirements that you have to take one, just like in the clinical, you have to take one other class, but you can take as many as you want. And our distribution requirements are human resource management, financial management, fundraising and marketing, and supervision and consultation. And of course, you can imagine supervision and consultation is incredibly relevant for everyone. And that is actually one of our most popular courses because, of course, even if you're going into clinical work, you're going to need those skills very quickly, right? Most of our clinical people will go into kind of supervision very quickly. I hope that's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I will also mention some of the practicum placements that you can fulfill your second year practicum requirements. And I listed some of them, but they can be addiction focused. They can be focused on health or hospitals, or you can have a placement related to aging, behavioral health. Of course, there's criminal justice, homelessness, housing, interpersonal violence prevention and counseling in settings that work with LGBTQIA plus individuals. And you can also choose to be part of a certificate program. Dean Hunter, I don't know how much you've gone into those, but I will mention that your placement, if you're part of a certificate program, will also correspond to that particular placement. So if you are, and it's the same with MAP as well. So, but if you are a clinical student and you are in the civet certificate program, you will be placed in a setting that aligns with trauma-informed work or working with survivors of interpersonal violence. If you are in health and aging, or I should say aging and health, you'll also be in a placement that aligns with aging and health. But there are so many placement types, and the Office of Practicum Learning will work with you to find the best placement. Of course, they want to know what interests you have, and they try to work with students to find them the best suited placement.
Okay.
But well, and it is in those placements, whether it's MAP or clinical, that you will, you know, get more into depth in knowledge related to a specific area. You're there to strengthen and deepen your skills, and also ensure that your social work values are aligned with the NASW Code of Ethics, and to be able to understand why our focus on marginalized and oppressed groups is important that we remain committed to such populations.
Thanks, Edward. Can I just jump in with one last thing that I also wanted to say about the certificate programs? Just like Dr. Leslie said, all of the certificate programs in our school are open also to the MAP specialization students, except for the ACT certificate, which is the addictions counseling treatment. So that one is not open to MAP, but everyone else it is open to. I mean, all the other ones are. And again, as you think about it, think about how whatever your interests are, let's say it is reducing interpersonal violence and trauma, right? That's your passion. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. So you reduce. Sorry. So you are playing. Oh my goodness. All right, sorry everyone. I don't know what that was. That was a dog. Okay, just kidding. So you are placed in a placement that is, say, the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. That would be a macro placement where we're actually working with the community to get information out there, to teach people how to deal with these issues kind of on a community level, or you could be working individually, right, with actually survivors of violence. So again, thinking about how each of those certificates can be macro, it can be micro, can be a combination, right? Think about that.
And keep in mind, as Dr. Nepomniachtchi said, that also will impact your coursework, right? Because I think Dr. Nepomniachtchi and Dr. Questor outlined these specific courses, so the assignments will be different, and the way you approach an issue or a specific population is going to be based on which course you take. And you can still focus on both areas, but it's about the level of depth that you're interested in going into.
Okay. Again, thanks to the faculty. Yes, Dr. Lena is right. This group is a group that has to make a lot of decisions. There is one more certificate information session, and gang, that is on November 4th. You have received emails about that. Most of you are still in the period where you're able to apply for a certificate. We even have a certificate program now in the intensive weekend program, which is new this year. Very exciting for the intensive weekend students. Look for reminders about the Zoom link for that last certificate info session. Again, that's coming up on November 4th. Okay, so again, thanks to the faculty, we've set a good chunk of time aside for your questions and answers. So to make this go as smoothly as possible, people get a chance to ask a question. Please raise your hand through the Zoom link here, and wait to be recognized. And because we're recording, please try to keep your question general. And if you have a specific question, if you have transfer credits, or what about this? If I'm in that certificate program, what's the impact? If you have a specific individual question, it's best to follow up with your advisor, or you can email me and I'll connect you with your advisor or the MSW Student Affairs. But let's try to keep the questions as general as possible, because again, we are recording. And this recording will be sent to those of you who are invited, to everyone who is invited to this program today. So again, thanks to the faculty. They're going to stick around and answer your questions. Who wants to begin? Julian has raised their hand. Welcome,
Thank
Julian.
you. Hi everyone. Thanks everyone for being here, for sharing your information. I'm a traditional student via the Newark campus, and even in my first year, I chose Rutgers because of the map robustness and the LISTA option as well. So that's what I have my sights set on. I have two questions, please. I wonder if who handles the practicum placement when one is in a certificate? Is it a joint effort between both sides?
Who wants to answer that? Julian is looking for LISTA certificate. And again, specializations you do, everyone has to make a decision. There's not a choice. Certificates are optional, but highly recommended. I definitely encourage all of you to seriously consider joining one of our great certificate programs. So if Julian is in the LISTA program, who is going to help him set up his second year practicum?
So thanks, Julian. I
Uh,
can answer that question. So what happens is you choose your certificate, and if your MAP, someone will work with you to ensure that there is a placement for LISA. And so the director of the LISA program is Dr. Elsa Condelario, and there is also Jose, who I forgot his last name at the moment.
Cruz.
Cruz.
Jose Cruz will work with students to pick a placement. So it's a joint effort. I mean, the director works alongside the practicum office, and then Jose Cruz will also work with you in that process. And it varies too. So if you're in an online program, sometimes it's the director who helps find the placements. Other time there are dedicated individuals in the practicum office that work for online versus traditional. Sometimes both the online and the traditional person is the same. But is there a specific question related to that, or you just wanted to know if there was like a separate?
I don't want to take up too much time. I just had a kind of dicey initial practicum placement experience, and it seemed that even as a generalist student, I was being sent out to state my map preference, and then my LISTA options were, you know, siloed to working with Dr. Cruz. So I just wanted to, I guess, be reassured that for my second year there'd be like a wider net of support, or if I am a MAP declared student, that isn't gonna inhibit my options because I'm also with LISTA.
is it because, I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump in. Is it because, Julian, is it because you are concerned about like you want to work with specifically with Latino populations? Is that your concern?
Somewhat. It seemed as if most LISTA options were clinical focused. And I'm having a
Okay.
great first semester experience, but no, I definitely want to have the programming part of it.
That's definitely not the case, and we can follow up with you and Dr. Candelario to make sure that everyone who is in that specific situation do get a MAC focus with Latino populations practicum.
Yeah,
Super.
and I think that's a great idea to have either someone can contact Elsa from the MAP group or Dr. Candelario to just sort of make make that feedback known to ensure someone's there to help them.
Yeah.
I put my email
Thank
in
you.
the chat, so feel free to please reach out to me and then we can follow up from there.
Thank you.
But I think it leads to a larger issue and a larger discussion. So the Rutgers School of Social Work is a very large school, and we have so many different program options, including the traditional, online, blended. Then we have the Generalist Foundation, and I know all this because I just did the report that we're supposed to submit. So I am now well versed in what's happening at the school. And the practicum office works really hard to ensure that people get the best placements. And there are so many moving parts to do this, and we also have a large student body. So any sort of feedback to help you get what it is, the learning experience you're hoping for is helpful. And with a program, when you're in a certificate program, that is one of the things you can do, and that is always reach out to the director.
For sure. Thank you. And my next question is just kind of broad. If the second year electives, if those are, I'm a Newark student, so like the thought of guiding to New Brunswick or even Camden for certain faculty, like are there a lot of online synchronous type of options that we could expect?
They are all of the courses that are the distribution requirements. Well, okay, so the required courses are offered on all campuses, and they are also often offered remotely synchronously as well. And some are even, well, okay, let me stop there. The distribution requirements, they are also offered on the ground. Sometimes there's not enough enrollment in the other, the non-New Brunswick campus, which happens to be the biggest one. And then those courses are put into the remote synchronous format if there's not enough people for those classes. But in general, all of those classes are offered on all 3 campuses.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. Who is next with a question? Don't see any raised hands on my, oh, great. Is it Cheryl? Cheryl, there you go.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this information. I have been debating like which one is right for me because both sound incredible. So my future plan, I want to start in clinical as somebody working one-on-one with basically working adults. And I eventually want to have a community organization, business and nonprofit. So I'm wondering if, since I think it was Dr. Lena said that classes can kind of go vice versa. I know that if I were to take MAP and I wanted a clinical, I'd have to take specific clinical classes. If I was what? Okay. And if I was in clinical, I'm wondering if there are classes specific to like creating a business and or working with a nonprofit, like that I could use as an elective that's almost like MAP related. Was that clear? Was my question clear?
Yeah. And yeah, Edward, go ahead.
I don't know if we have specific clinical courses like that. But I imagine you could take a MAP elective or take so some of the MAP electives, I don't, sometimes you can't take it because there's a prerequisite to some of them, or I'm not sure. So there are certain clinical classes. So we have advanced, for example, clinical electives that you can take unless you've taken clinical social work 1. I don't know if MAP has a specific requirement in that sense.
Okay. The MAP advanced distribution requirement courses are all available to clinical social work students.
Yeah.
And I do believe that that there a student would take those when they're in their second half of the program.
Okay.
Okay, so you can take MAP courses as part of your electives, and there
Okay.
are
Right.
4 electives in the program.
And
Is there,
Cheryl, I think you had a specific question about like running a nonprofit, right? I think that was, we
yeah,
don't have a specific class on running a nonprofit, but certainly all of our classes.
developing actually more of a
Okay,
nonprofit.
yeah. So, things like financial management, right? Fundraising and marketing, all of those things play a role, obviously, in
Yes.
developing and running a nonprofit, also human resource management, right? So any of our distribution courses would certainly be very relevant to what you're
Okay.
interested in. And you can talk, with your advisor and one of the MAP people to think through what would be
Okay.
the best course.
So does the clinical, then one last question, does the clinical offer a course on creating your own private practice?
No,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
not a focus of the
That
class.
answers my questions. Thank you so much.
Sure. And also just to piggyback on that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clinical social work courses that are open to MAP folks. And
Yes.
we have a list that Arlene, I think, sent out, sorry, Dr. Hunter,
Yes.
of these specific courses that MAP students can also take.
Okay.
Clinical social work, adolescence health, children's school, survivors of abuse and trauma, aging, behavioral health, and Latinos. Got that?
Yes.
That's it.
Perfect. Yep, I have it in my email, but I
Oh.
wanted to know business specifically if there was like a business class offered, because I can't imagine going and getting an MBA after this too. So, perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Right. Well, thank you, Cheryl. Giselle?
Hi. I just wanted to ask, I applied to the interpersonal violence certificate, And so I'm really interested to know, like, if you guys have any details on what placements are offered for that certificate program. I was just curious, like, where students are typically placed. I'm planning to go the clinical route, unless something changes, something piques my interest, but that's the direction I'm planning to go. So just wanted to know what kind of placements, like, and which organizations do you guys know of that typically place students?
So the civic director isn't here, so or someone from practicum, so I don't want to list particular sites
Okay.
or organizations, but they are related to a variety of placements related to helping children and adults cope with violence, histories of victimization, learning trauma-informed practices, how to work with survivors of abuse, things of that nature. Hospitals I think things that you could imagine, that's probably where they're placed.
Are placements typically in hospitals, or like can it be like domestic violence shelters or any other organizations like on that front?
I can't answer 100%, but there are
Okay,
all sorts of placements in women shelters, things of that nature that I know students have been placed in the past.
gotcha. Okay,
Sorry, I could be more specific.
that's okay. Thank you.
Can I answer a quick question that was in the chat about the proportion of students who apply to one versus the other? And Dr. Hunter answered it, but I want to answer a little bit more broadly. The overwhelming majority of students in the Rutgers School of Social Work, as in all of the school of social work in the country, are in the clinical specialization. Again, that is kind of what people think about when they think of social work, and that is what people have done overwhelmingly. However, we are working to try to get the understanding of what macro social work is out there, right? That's why we're doing this, because I think many people don't understand and don't get it, right? Because it's so easy kind of to think about, yeah, we're working one-on-one with people. I get that. What is this larger story? But the other thing about that's on the kind of the cool side is that it is a relatively small program, right? You're talking about maybe 60 students-ish per year. And it's a lovely cohort. People get to know each other. You're in classes with faculty because it's a much smaller program, and so it's really tight. And so it's a lovely group. Not the clinicals, not, please don't take it in any way that way, but that is kind of one of the benefits of a smaller class.
Okay.
iPhone, Mrs. iPhone.
Do you have a question?
Okay, is that me? Am I
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes,
iPhone? Okay,
yes.
I'm Catherine. Sorry, I didn't
You
read
probably
it.
have a name. What's your name?
Yeah,
Catherine.
Catherine.
Hi.
And actually, I had two questions and they were just answered. I think I want to do clinical because I do want to work individually with people, and I'm assuming you can't do that at all if you do the map, right? You can't.
That's not true. So I'll answer. Go ahead, ask
Okay.
the question, then I can respond to that.
Okay. Yeah, no, so I did want to know that if I did do the map, can you become an LCSW or an LMSW or whatever? I thought that, okay. And then the other question was, if I was in clinical, could I take map classes? And that one I think was answered. And then I also just wanted to respond to the lady that was interested in the civet program. I'm in that. And so I've learned a little bit about it. And I just, like, my placement currently is working with foster children who have been through trauma. So it's all about trauma-informed care. I did have a question about the hospital placements because I was interested in doing that, and they said they only do that for the second placement. So you wouldn't be placed there in your first one, but that's like more if you specify that you really want to work in a hospital placement. It seems like most of them, like in the group that I'm in that are also civic students, are working with individuals in trauma-informed placements where you're working with people that have been through trauma and then maybe doing some psychoeducation about trauma with the other employees. Anyway, just if that would be helpful. But yeah, go
Gotcha.
ahead if you have an answer to that.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to say thank you. That's good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, faculty, we have a question in the chat from, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Naquan. Wants to know, if I want to work with the Department of Juvenile Justice, which is the best specialization for me to choose.
So I just want to answer that question. I'm not sure if we answered Catherine's questions yet, but so we'll get back to you in a second, Catherine. So Noquan, that's a great question. And I think back to what we've been speaking about. So it's not about where you want to work, it's what you want to really focus on once you're in that juvenile justice. Do you want to focus on clinical interventions, or do you want to focus more on programming, administration, or some of the policies that end up impacting individuals in juvenile justice settings? And you can probably do both regardless of what specialization you end up in, but what do you want your courses to focus on? So when you write papers, do you want to write a paper about a specific policy that is impacted the juvenile justice system? Or do you want to focus on a clinical intervention that you did with a client, or the creation of a group that you developed or would like to develop in a juvenile justice? And I think that's a great question for everyone to consider when they are making a choice. Again, you will be able to get experience in both. I mean, to say that you're never going to do something MAP related in a clinical, that you'll never have this direct practice type work in a MAP placement, that's not entirely, because social work is always a combo. But where do you want to focus your coursework? What do you want to spend the majority of time doing in your placement? Now, Catherine, in terms of licensing exam, anybody can, whether you're MAP or clinical specialist, can sit for the LSW exam. That's the first license in New Jersey after you graduate. With the LCSW, if you are MAP, that makes it a bit more complicated. And I'll defer to Arlene about what is the messaging we've been telling to students in the MAP who may want to get an LCSW later.
Yeah, and that's not, that happens quite frequently. And for those really ambitious students who want to have it all and do it all, you can get pretty close to it. So if you choose MAP, or if you think that's where your passion and heart is, then definitely choose MAP. And your advisors will work with you to make sure that you choose the management practice courses. Interested in hearing about new titles down the road. And the required advanced practice distribution requirement. But again, you're thinking, down the road, maybe I would like to get the LCSW, Licensed Clinical Social Work credential. Then you all will receive these curriculums at a glance. I'm sorry you can't see it because of the Zoom, but we send out the curriculums at a glance. Registration for spring starts November 10th. You're going to get an email from me with a follow-up email starting Monday from your advisors. Curriculum at a glance will be attached. And in our curriculum at a glance, we clearly point out these are the advanced practice distribution courses that MAP students can take that will count as clinical course credit. The state of New Jersey requires that you take 12 clinical credits of coursework at your MSW during your MSW to qualify for the LCSW. You're all taking psychopathology, that's 3 credits. You're all taking practice with individuals and families, that's 6 credits. And if you choose MAP, you are going to take 1 or 2 of, you're going to take those electives you're allowed to take as a MAP student, the clinical courses. And again, your advisors will work with you, although we do try to make it very clear in the curriculum at a glance. So you can still be in MAP, you have a MAP, fulfill all the MAP requirements, including your second practicum, but then you still have the option, because you'll have the credits under your belt on your transcript, to down the road sit for the LCSW exam.
You just have to make sure you have the right amount of clinical electives, and some students do have to take an additional course, is from what has happened in the past. So you just want to make sure all that's worked out with your advisor if that's what you want to do down the road. And it takes some foresight to make sure that by the time that you have those required credits. Because you might have taken different electives that might not count as a clinical elective in the past. So you want to make sure that you work on that plan.
Yes, and the advisors are all very knowledgeable about this. During their training and orientation, they've had intense sessions and meetings with these key faculty. They understand the curriculum. If they have any questions, they know to ask me or the appropriate faculty. So the advisors will not be surprised and will be happy that you ask, and are certainly able to advise you about how and which courses eligibles. And also too, if you find yourself crossing that stage when your name is called as a MAP person and oh no, I only have 9 clinical credits, you can reapply as a postgrad, come back. We have students who get their MSWs from Fordham and Columbia and NYU coming back as a postgrad and taking 3 credits of a clinical course so they can sit for the exam as well. So it would be more cost effective if you did it while you're still a matriculated student. So heads up about that. But if you miss it and you graduate and you think I really should have done it there's still an opportunity to do that as well.
Before we run out of time, can I just go back and answer one of Catherine's questions that I thought was really important? The question is like, if you are a MAP specialization, and I want to say in the other direction too, if you're a clinical specialization, but let me answer the MAP one, does that mean that you will not have any interactions with individuals? And the answer to that is a very hard, that is not true. There are almost no placements where you will not have individual contact with people, because people make up everyone, all of the agencies that, the people that the agencies serve, right, are of course going to be part of what you're doing. So let me give you one quick example. One of our MAP people was placed in the library. That was constant, right, work on an individual level with people who are coming in the library. And as many of you know, right, people who come into a public library need everything, right? They need to know how to apply for a job. They have kids who need help with homework, that's et cetera, right? People, particularly people from lower SES backgrounds, the library is their life source for all data and everything that they need, because they often don't have access to that anywhere else. So that was what she was doing kind of one-on-one, but then she was setting up policies about how to serve these people, right? Thinking of the classes that people need, thinking of how do we reach out to these communities to get them what they need. And she actually is now was the president of the Social Work Librarian Association. That's not the right word. The Library Social Work Association, which is a very cool new kind of social work space that social workers had never been in before. And now every library, certainly in New York City and around New Jersey, has now kind of an important key social work person there. So that's just an example of how, of course, this is also interrelated.
So also when you think about that in terms of social work education, so what Dr. Nepomniachtchi was just talking about was using your skills from the foundation year. You're still going to be using your direct practice skills because you've developed, everybody in this social work program and most social work programs across the country have a generalist program. By the second year, you will have met those requirements to engage in generalist social work practice. So doing that type of stuff in the library may be part of a MAP. But the way in which you deal with it, will you use CBT, specific crisis, learn about, certain psychodynamic related issues, have supervision related to clinical dynamics? You probably won't get that exactly. But maybe you might, but that is the point. Remember, you all have a foundation year that you're finishing soon, and that gives you the generalist practice skills you need. Is there, Larry, did you have a question?
I think.
Yes. Oh,
Hi, Larry.
hi, how are you? I'm sorry for my camera, some reasons isn't working, but I'm an intensive weekend student, and up to this point, classes have been told, we've been told what we have to take. So I was wondering if we was to choose either map or clinical, what flexibility do we have in choosing our electives or our classes?
Yeah, and I did respond to you in chat, Larry.
Oh, I didn't
I
see it.
advise you to just follow up with Dr. Jack Lewis, Dr. J,
Yeah.
as he'd like students to recall, to refer to him. But intensive week, yes, in the intensive weekend program, we now have the MAP specialization. That's relatively new, so that's wonderful for intensive weekend students. And also you have the option of applying to the LISTA certificate program. That's an option, not a requirement. But if you choose MAP in intensive weekend program, then Dr. J will send you information. Again, you're all going to hear about registration for spring semester. Unless you're graduating in January, everyone's going to get some information about registration coming up in spring. But reach out directly to Dr. J and talk with him about choices. And I put in the chat too, this is a starting point. You will get the information about the deeper dive into the MAP specialization. Those programs are next Tuesday and Friday. We'll make sure you get that information. I encourage all of you to look into that. Again, it's a deeper dive into what about MAP? Is this right for me? Also, just talk with your faculty, talk with your human behavior faculty. What do you think about that? What did you choose as an MSW student? Talk with those of you who are in practicum now. Talk with your practicum instructor. What did you choose? What was your career trajectory like? And why? Talk with a lot of people. This is a starting point. There's lots of information on our website as well. And reach out to your advisors, to student affairs, to the faculty here that you heard from today, to get the information that you need. We will send out this recording as well, in case you want to review that. I really want to thank Dr. Lena, Dr. Swesta, Dr. Alessi for coming and sharing their time this afternoon with us. And good luck to all of you. You'll be hearing from us soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a good afternoon.